Grief it's a very strange thing. It's very strange. One can wake up in the morning feeling like, I think today's going to be okay. It's happened to me just the other day. I was feeling fine upstairs, getting ready. And when I walked to the top of the stairs, I was okay. By the bottom of the stairs, it's a short staircase, I was weeping. It's very, very strange. It can just jump you when you least expect it. Something will happen. Easy to give money away, but it's not easy to give money away well. And when you're dealing with an organisation that has Her Majesty the Queen's name on it, it's got to be right.
Purposely Podcast, speaking with social entrepreneurs and charity founders and leaders, people who are making the world a better place.
Nicola Brentnall, a very warm welcome to Purposely Podcast.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, really good to have you on. You are the CEO of AJAR. What do they do? What's their mission and what's their vision?
Well, ajars.org is really a group of friends. It's not a foundation. It's not a charity. It's a group of friends who've come together to help philanthropists give money to organisations in the UK that are supporting families and children in the moments that matter, moments of crisis. It might be grief. It might be a lack of money. It might be loneliness and isolation. And we started doing this work back in August, and we give grants, and we also offer, if the charities want this, a little bit of added value in the form of governance support. I'm helping with, for example, chairs appraisals. I'm helping with a board effectiveness and governance review, and also brand and communications matters. Because the Ajars is Ajaz Ahmed. He's the founder of an organisation called AKQA, which is a brand innovation communications agency with studios worldwide. And his colleague, Sam Kelly, who is the chief marketing officer, is also available to offer support on communications, branding, new ideas in communications for charities. We try and keep everything as light touch as we can, because we know how challenging it is to run small organisations and raise money and keep the show on the road. So we're there in support, and it's been fascinating. I've met some exceptional people in the time that I've been doing this work, and people all driven by a sense of purpose to help others, whether it's children, whether it's lonely elders, whether it's people struggling to find kit that they need for their children. It's a real privilege to be able to walk alongside and help where we can.
Fabulous. And you're you're very experienced of dealing with successful people and helping them give well and help people on the margins and in need. What are the key differences, dealing with successful people when it comes to their charitable giving? Do you think they approach giving differently?
I think everyone's got their own way of giving. People have their own priorities. They have their own motivations, rationale for giving, what they want to see, what good looks like. Everyone's different when it comes to giving. There is no one right way. For me, it was spending time with Ajars and trying to understand what it is he really wants to do here. And it's very, very simple. It's just being helpful. It's not something that's sort of very highfalutin. It's just, here are charities, proven work, great teams, great cause, enormous need. How can I help? What can I do that's most useful? But there will be others who come at it from a very, very different angle. And there's room for all kinds of giving, because the need in the world, as we know, particularly now, is enormous. So the more people coming onto the pitch and giving small amounts of money or large, it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's the motive to try and work with specialists who know what they're doing, ideally with unrestricted funding, and just let them get on with what they're doing.
And you've been doing this sort of work for 3 decades. What drove you to chase it in the first place?
Well, it's interesting. I think because I come from a background of a family that my parents got divorced. There was very little money, a lot of struggle in my childhood and home life. So I sort of come to it from an understanding of what it's like to be on the margins, what it's like to be the quiet child at the back of the room of the class who doesn't really want to be seen. I sort of have that sort of empathy with people going through difficult times. And I had the opportunity to join an organisation called the Prince's Trust way, way back in 1997. And an organisation, as you know, that supports young people with training, development and employment opportunities for young people who've really struggled in life and been dealt a really difficult hand. And I was able to find, I don't know how to put this, sort of find my tribe there. There were young people whose experiences I could recognise because I'd walked some of them myself. So for me, it was personal. There's this expression going around called lived experience. For me, it was personal. I know what that was like. And I know what it was like to find someone who believed in me when I was young and growing up, and how significant that was. And seeing the Prince's Trust reaching out and supporting thousands of young people over any 1 year made me think, this is where I need to be. This is where I can use the skill and experience that I've got. In my case, it was of all things governance and administration, to work and support an organisation that was doing really fundamental important things, touching and changing lives and helping young people take the next step into a much brighter future. So that's where it really came from. And working in the Prince's Trust, it was running programmes. And then from there, I went to be on the grant-making side at, first of all, the Prince of Wales Charitable Foundation, and then an organisation called the Queen's Trust.
I think with the Prince's Trust, it's very unique. There's a sense of, I think, sort of a sprinkle of stardust that the Prince and also the Prince's Trust gives to young people's outlook or life. And, you know, sometimes young people have been on the real margins of society, going through a really tough time, and here they are achieving something with their lives with that sort of sprinkle of stardust from the Prince. And it is a unique organisation like that. There was a real, I think young people are inspired by its sort of almost like showbiz, loyalty, stamp of approval.
I think that's right. And young people will write to the Prince of Wales a lot to thank him for what he's done for them. They see that very personally, and he will write back to them as well, personally, to those who write in. But I think at the heart of it is about respect for young people, a belief in their ability and their talents to do all kinds of extraordinary things. And the fact that these young people get out of bed in the morning is a demonstration of their resilience and their grit and their guts. So at the heart of the Prince's Trust, it's how can we help? How can we support you in your development? What opportunities can we give? When young people knock on the door of the Prince's Trust, the question the Prince's Trust will ask is, how can I help you? That's at the heart of it. And over the top, obviously, the Prince's endorsement, the Prince of Wales endorsement and belief in them. It's that magical combination of commitment, tried and tested programs that really work. And that's, as you say, sprinkle of stardust. It's a magical combination there.
And he's a really good guy, isn't he? I've met him. He is very human. He believes in young people, has a real affinity with young people, and he can communicate with them.
Absolutely. I was in my time with the organisation, I saw him with young people on many occasions, and he was at ease with them, put them at their ease. There was always a lot of laughter, but also a very genuine interest from his point of view in them and what they were doing and how was the programme working for them. What more could we do? A constant restlessness for better all the time coming from the top in that organisation. How can we be smarter? How can we help more people? How can we improve? How can we learn? How can we grow? How can we do more? It was really quite remarkable to see that level of real genuine commitment in the organisation.
You've been in and around the royal family and their charitable activities for a number of years. So after the Prince's Trust, they trusted you to carry forward some more work for them?
Yes, I had the most extraordinary opportunity. Talk about being in the right place at the right time. The Queen's Silver Jubilee Trust, as it was then, was running, giving small amounts of money away, bits and pieces, supported the Prince's Trust for a long time, and the trustees decided to spend out. It had about £35 million left. It was money raised in one fundraising year in 1977. And its purpose had been to help young people help others. So it's all about giving funding to charities that enables young people to serve others around them and benefit themselves at the same time. And they needed someone to run that spend out. So I was asked by the chairman, Sir Alan Reid, whether I would be interested in doing that, coming and having an office in Buckingham Palace and giving away £35 million to youth charities. It was a very short interview. It's like that question. And would you, there'll be some international travel, would you like to do this? And it was like in a heartbeat, yes. And I'm so glad I did that, because it was an opportunity again to connect with exceptional organisations working tirelessly in the support of the development of children and young people, and enabling them to take the next step. And I came across organisations like CAMFED. I came across organisations like Teenage Cancer Trust, continuing to support the Prince's Trust, helping their push out to do more in Wales. Organisations like Inter-University, Frontline, the social work charity, we were behind them. So a rich variety of youth organisations, and enabling them with substantial grants over the duration of the spend out, which was about 5 years, to take a service or a programme that they ran, or the whole organisation, and enabling them to move forward. And I look back on that work with an enormous sense of satisfaction and pride in the organisations that we work with and what they're doing. And looking at where they are now, and the programmes that we invested in to help them bring back to life or to continue off thriving. And that's really, really satisfying. And it's all down to them.
Yeah.
Queen's Trust was just able to come in with funding that they could rely on over that period. And it was great fun to do it.
And what was the unique pressures of a spend out? Did you feel the pressure?
Yes, because it's easy to give money away, but it's not easy to give money away well. And when you're dealing with an organisation that has Her Majesty the Queen's name on it, it's got to be right. And so due diligence has to be very thorough. And building trusted relationships with the organisations we were funding was very, very important, to make sure that we were responsive to them, understanding of the pressures that they were facing, but also keeping an eye all the time on reputation, and making sure that we stayed on the right side of what we were doing, and just making sure that the organisations that we chose were able to use that money really productively. As I touched on a moment ago, what those organisations that could take it and make great things happen with it. Because once it's gone, it's gone. Once it's spent, that's it. There isn't any more. And the organisation obviously spent out and closed. So it's about reputation. It's about choice. It's about relationships, it's about support, and it's about hopefully bringing some of that stardust to organisations. One of the biggest successes I think that we had was with on-side youth zones, and we were able to help that movement develop. And you and I worked together, Mark, on that expansion programme.
Yeah.
And youth zones are now opening up all over the country, which is really wonderful. And Queen's Trust was able to play a big role in keeping the momentum going there. So we can look back at that and think, wow, we enabled some of that to happen through the funding support and getting behind the teams of experts who were running those organisations with financial support that they could rely on.
Because when you're doing your due diligence, when you're assessing a project, do you put a lot on the person and the people that are behind the organisation that you're looking to invest in? Is that often the sort of the people that are the most important piece, and really believing in them?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like any investment. You're investing in the team, the way that they present, the way they understand, the way that they prepare, the attention to detail in really important matters that may not immediately sort of stand out as what we're looking at, like safeguarding culture, for example, how they care for the young people that they are supporting, but also their staff, the culture of the organisation. It all comes from the top. Why are they doing this? What is the point of it? How well researched are they? What evidence have they got to prove the worth and value, the need, worth and value of what they're doing, and the personalities of the people who are in charge? And it was such a privilege, Mark, to be able to do it, because I met some exceptional leaders people who go into this work do it often at a high price, because it's stressful and demanding and difficult, and long hours and demanding circumstances, and often a high wire act financially, raising money and being sure and certain to be able to keep the show running, and choosing those that were really very smart in the way that they went about doing it. And their own humanity really comes through. The time that I spent with the leaders of those organisations, I learned a huge amount about how to lead, how to be a good chief executive. I learned a lot from them. I was very, very lucky to work with the people that I did in the time that I was there.
And do you look back and think of any times that you were involved in funding something that didn't quite meet up expectations, or may have been deemed as some form of failure?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I always used to say there's no failure, there's only learning. There was one organisation that we gave funding for impact measurement study to be done. And we went into it, they had a particular ambition for it. And unfortunately, it just didn't quite turn out the way that we had wanted it to turn out from their perspective. But they were really, really smart in that they kept us informed all the way through. As things didn't quite go according to plan, we knew every step of the way what was going on, how things were slightly changing, how the scope was different and why. The output was a reasonable report, but not quite the one that we had hoped to see, or most importantly, they had hoped to see. But they always were with us and kept us, as I said, very closely informed. It's when there is a sense from organisations who have taken a donor's money to do something and it goes wrong and they don't want to disclose, and you find out another way, that's when there can be some problems. But this organisation with this research report kept us in the loop all the way through. And the report that we had, as I said, wasn't quite the one that we had hoped for, but it had value. It just wasn't quite what we set out to fund.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot in that process, and they learned a lot in that process. So there was value ultimately in it.
And so after the Queen's Trust, you were effectively founded the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. Yes, just as I'd spent £35 million, and I thought that was it, and I was sort of turning the lights out in my office in Buckingham Palace, I was asked to start up another organisation in the Queen's name in recognition of her lifetime belief in young people in the Commonwealth. And I was just given the name. We'll call it the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. I was asked to do it by the then private secretary to the Queen. We'll call it the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, he said. Off you go, make it happen. So with no money in the bank at all, and just a little corner office in Buckingham Palace at the time, we've subsequently moved out when all the refurbishment started. I set up the Queen's Commonwealth Trust, and this was about recognising young people who are social entrepreneurs, who are working or running their own charities, working locally around the world to bring a benefit to their community because they understand what's needed. They understand best how things should be done. So funding grassroots organisations, funding young people who have set up and have been running these little organisations for a while. And I raised money for it. I worked with Ajaz Ahmed, who I'm now working for again with his philanthropy, on the brand, on the website, on the social media strategy, the tone of voice for the organisation, recruited the first team and made the first grants, and had the opportunity to travel, to meet some of the young people and what they were doing, and visiting their work in Rwanda, in South Africa, in Malawi, in Zambia. We started our focus and originally was in Africa, and hence all of those African countries, and seeing exceptional work from young people, really driven by a desire to step up and help people in their communities, whether it's tackling gender-based violence or food scarcity or access to education, or dealing with the scourge of plastic waste and unemployment, and seeing these smart solutions that the young people would come up with, or access to justice, in prisons in Uganda and Kenya. And really, really struck by the talent and the drive and the ability and the possibilities that these young people were bringing each and every day to people who needed a helping hand.
Wonderful.
We set up a network of like-minded young people at Queen's Commonwealth Trust that is continuing. I think they've got 850 young people in that network now. And it was 5 years of sort of hard work and enormous reward in the sense of seeing great work in action, learning a lot from the young people that we were supporting, and working through, obviously, 2020. That was a very difficult year for us. Fundraising was very difficult. I'm just being struck by the young people who are often working in very difficult circumstances, powering through the demands that the pandemic placed on their shoulders, pivoting their business models, making things happen, not giving up. And it was a real inspiration to me in that year to keep going, follow them, learn from them, draw on their strength. So it really became an equal partnership. That's what we wanted. The vision of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust is a world where young people are equal partners in driving change. It absolutely was that. And I learned such a lot from them.
Fantastic. And so organisation endures, but you decided to step off?
That's right. I'd done 5 years, and I sort of have a belief that when you've done 5 years, you've probably, done some of your best work, and it's time to have a change. And also at the same time, my dear husband was becoming very unwell. Unfortunately, he had a diagnosis of blood cancer, and he died from that in January. So last year was a very intense year, and I needed to step away to be with him. I said farewell to the organisation, and it's steamed off and is doing very well. And I've got huge respect for the team that's there, working very, very hard in support of the young people. So I sort of stepped back and retired to be with Tom, and then had a call with my friend Giles, who said that he was feeling a little bit down. And I asked why, and he said, because my philanthropy is stalling. I'm not giving away as much as I would want. And as a throwaway line, I said, oh, well, hire me, I'll help you. And so a couple of days a week, I'm now helping Giles with his giving. And it's Giles, me and Sam Kelly working together to do this. And it's a lot of fun. And again, another opportunity to work with exceptional leaders in organisations, this time based in the UK, who are working in support of children and families going through difficult times.
And Tom, he wasn't involved in your sector. He did other things.
My husband Tom, yes, he had his own business. He was an angel investor, so he had lots of interests in all kinds of companies. He supported me with the Queen's Commonwealth Trust and travelled at his own expense to see the young people in action and really admired them. As an entrepreneur, he saw their drive and their interest in social purpose and had an enormous respect for them. So, but unfortunately, last year was very, very, very difficult for him and I. And he had to gradually step back from running his businesses and his business interests.
How did Tom deal with his news, his diagnosis? Was he a positive person?
Tom was the most positive person I've ever come across. He accepted the diagnosis with great stoicism and grace, and we agreed a strategy of how we were going to deal with it, Mark. And it went something like this. It is what it is. This situation just is. There's no point in being angry or bitter or regretful. We just have to deal with the situation as it is. We agreed that we were going to show up well for each other, particularly, and for those who were supporting us. And we chose as best we could to be brave and keep going. And that strategy of dealing with it really came from Tom. And I was in awe of him. He went into hospital in August last year and didn't come home. He tried chemotherapy for the blood cancer, but unfortunately, he was so unwell. He did one round, and it put him into a very difficult situation. People with blood cancer or experience it will understand what I mean. He was never going to survive. But he had this enormous will to live, Mark. He wanted to be with us. It wasn't fighting cancer. That wasn't the right way of putting it. He wanted to be with us, and us meaning me, his brother, his nieces, his friends, wider extended family. And he did his very best to stay with us. But unfortunately, it was just overwhelming. But I learned a great deal from him on how to approach the worst possible news, how to deal with losing mobility, how to deal with ultimately losing cognitive ability, and to do that with calm, and to do that with strength, and to do that with generosity and grace. And I hope that if that news comes to me, and who knows, cancer is, I think 1 in 2 people get it if it comes to me, and I would want to look back on how Tom dealt with it, Mark, and try and do the same thing myself.
I bet it's been incredibly tough, and decision to get back to work has not been easy, but also I imagine it's given you a real lift to get back into what you're good at.
Well, I kind of sort of stumble along and try and do my best as most of us do, but has been a great joy to come back because I'm working alongside people who care very deeply. And I have been really, really delighted and touched and moved by the love and support that I've had throughout Tom's illness from young people around the world, young people who met him when he travelled with me, young people who knew of him through me, supportive messages, cards. I've had people sent flowers and messages from past jobs and now with the organisations in ajars.org. So coming back has been like it's like I never left in a way. They walked alongside me and picking up again, because I did obviously have a period when I wasn't doing anything and we just stopped. The grants had been made and the organisations were, running. They didn't need me to be visible all the time. Coming back has been really a helpful distraction, and I've just been enveloped in this love and care. So I'm very, very fortunate to do the job that I do, and particularly the support and love that I have had from Ajars particularly. He's been remarkable and kind and helping me, and the organisations too. So it's been easier for me coming back than I know from the bereavement forums that I'm on than it is for other people having to go back into work. So I've been lucky in that sense.
Yeah. And grief has a way of dumping on your ass some days and really giving you some tough days. How have you dealt with those tough days?
Grief it's a very strange thing. It's very strange. One can wake up in the morning feeling like, I think today's going to be okay. It's happened to me just the other day. I was feeling fine upstairs, getting ready. And when I walked to the top of the stairs, I was okay. By the bottom of the stairs, it's a short staircase, I was weeping. It's very, very strange. It can just jump you when you least expect it. Something will happen. Someone will say something, or you remember an exchange, or I remember an exchange that I had with Tom, good times. Or suddenly, like yesterday, a newsletter came from the hospice where he died, and I opened the envelope, and on the front cover of the newsletter was a photograph of one of the people who were there when Tom was there, and he had subsequently died. And it just knocks you back for a moment. It's very tough. Grief is a horrible place to be. And I know that from the forums that I'm on, many people feel exactly the same way as I do sometimes. Not lonely necessarily, but alone. And a future that Tom and I had planned together gone. And how to deal with coming back to a new life. And who am I going to be now? And what am I going to stand for? And how am I going to face these next years without frankly, with our listeners, the love of my life? And trying to see it through a lens of, I was so lucky to be loved like that. I was so lucky to have him in my life. So many people go through life without that. And I had 8 wonderful years with him. And I try and look at it like that. Not what I've lost, but my goodness, what I had.
Yeah.
And how wonderful was that? And how can I honour him in now going forward into my new life, drawing on his values, his strength, his worldview, and doing the best that I can in the opportunities that I have with Ajars to help other people and to be there for them.
Wonderful. And you, not only in your day jobs, but actually in your spare time, you've been involved in a number of charities over the years, and you're continuing that sort of voluntary work on boards. That's still a big part of your life as well, isn't it?
It is, yes. I mean, I had a little bit of a break from them through Tom's final illness, but I'm very, very proud to be part of a trustee of an organisation called DFN Project Search, which is an organisation that helps young people with learning disabilities and autism get into paid employment. An enormous potential workforce out there of young people who are keen to work, desperate to work and have a chance to be included. And DFN Project Search is making that happen and is really at a tipping point of enormous success and helping many, many, many more young people do that. I've become a trustee of a new grant-making foundation that's yet to start, but will be starting very soon. Looking forward to that. And I've just become a governor to the children's charity Quorum. I'll be joining their campaign committee to help raise money to further extend the campus there in Bloomsbury.
Isn't it the world's oldest charity?
Yes, the world's oldest children's charity, that's right. And it's led by a real force of nature for children, Dr. Carol Hondon. She's remarkable, and what she has achieved there over the past, she must have been there about 13 years now, is really extraordinary. And she has this, she's part of the Ajaz family as well, she has this laser focus on doing the best possible job for children who need it, who need support. And she's never lost the line of sight to the individual child and how important it is for children to be in safe homes, to be to have the support around them, the therapeutic support that they may need, access to justice, access to legal advice, all of these things through the various charities that Quorum has on its campus. It's Carol that's driving that through with a very, very talented team of people around her. I'm hugely honoured to have been asked to become a governor and very much look forward to getting started with that from June.
Do you think the future's bright for children and young people? That the world seems tough right now, but do you have hope for children and young people in the future?
Oh, golly, it's a big question. I do. Because the young people that I have encountered in my time, and as you said, across 3 decades, all of them who've faced great difficulty in a whole variety of different circumstances, all of them have shared the same characteristic, Mark, and that is a desire to help other people around them in a whole variety of different ways. And so that, and in different cultures and different contexts all around the world, that same thing. What can I do to help other people? How can I do my bit? So I see, even looking out at the world as it is now, that there are millions of young people who say we're going to stand up for something better. We see them taking enormous risks, both in the streets in Ukraine, but also in Russia, protesting in whatever way they can to get the message across. A huge personal danger that this all needs to stop because they care and they want to do the right thing. So even in these dark days, I do see hope, because there is this generosity of love and desire to see the world being better. And it comes from our young people, and what they want to do. Even with a tiny amount to hand, they will give to help somebody else.
Wonderful. Well, I wish you all the best with your work, and thank you very much for joining me on Purposely. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Purposely Podcast. Please subscribe and leave a review. I hope you like what you're hearing, because I sure do.